Time travel is complicated. I've already addressed time travel / powers 2 times before, both really solid videos that you should totally check out. But during those videos, I definitely skipped a genre that's pretty important in the webtoon space. One that's incredibly important on the platform, and the series that's new on the block that's already sticking out. Do you regret your choices? Ever wish you can make better decisions? Ever wish you can go back in time and know better? There's just this human desire to go back and make better decisions. Heck, we even get called out by this by the demon Beastran from the world after the fall. I never imagined there was a species so obsessed with going back in time. You humans are unique in that sense. There's just something so human about wanting to go back in time, about being better, knowing better, making the most of our lives. The world after the fall goes pretty hard into this question early in the series, but kind of moves on from it into new and brighter worlds. Well, technically I guess darker? But whatever, the world after the fall gets kind of dark if you think about it too hard. But that idea of wanting to go back in time and make better decisions is in a lot of webtoon series. Marry my husband, I'm the queen of this life, there must be happy endings, perfect marriage revenge, my in-laws are obsessed with me, these series that have our main female leads' original lives be terrible, awful, garbage. Anywhere from having their husband cheat on them to divorce to death. A lot of death, interestingly. Marry My Husband has her husband cheat on her with her best friend while she has cancer, mind you, and her husband smacks her away, killing her. I'm the Queen of This Life has our main character betray her entire kingdom, kill the emperor / king, I don't know how she does it, putting her husband into power, to which he betrays her, marrying her sister who kills her in a dungeon. There must be happy endings. It's pretty normal. She just kind of gets divorced because she doesn't believe that he loves her, and then he dies. Interesting twist there. Perfect marriage revenge. She finds out that her husband loves her sister-in-law. When running away, she gets hit by a car. And finally, my in-laws are obsessed with me. We have, yet again, her husband and her adopted family, the best of both worlds, poison and kill her with her husband and sister-in-law, say that they love each other while she's literally dying right in front of them. Oh boy, I think you get it though. These are typically romance or drama series that have our female lead kind of get into the wrong relationship with someone she thought was charming, kind, and always gonna be there for her, but only leads to heartbreak and death. A lot of death, surprisingly. However, they're magically given a second shot at life, usually being sent back in time a number of years, usually 10 or so, often before they got married or even engaged, to pick a new path in life, which is where the series usually starts, around episode 1 or 2, after we see all the terrible things that's happened in their previous lives and the death. A lot of death, very much a lot of death, so much death. These types of stories involve 2 major things. First, the romance. Who doesn't love romance? I get it, a lot of people don't like romance, but romance is such a popular thing. My favorite genre is fantasy, yet the romance genre is somehow the most read genre on my list. I don't know how that happened. I do. There's a lot of romance that I like. But for those who want not romance, we also get the opposite. Revenge. Having our main character get back at the people who've hurt and betrayed them in the past, using their knowledge of the future to make a better life for themselves, and often finding a new and better romantic partner that is actually there for them and won't cheat on them the first chance they get. So overall, general improvements. These are really fun series that focus on people living their best life and getting that sweet, sweet revenge. But it's interesting. All of our characters in these series are pretty good. I mean, from a moral standpoint. They're all people that just got a little unlucky, that got tricked, that got played by their situation or by someone, either the love of their life or their family. Usually, they're people who deserve a second chance at life, a second chance to have a better life from the absolute garbage they had before. But what if they didn't? What if they didn't deserve that second chance? What if in that previous life they weren't living a morally correct life? What if they were a bad person? What if they were a villain? Not just a villain, but a tyrant, a murderer, someone who's killed many people, even her own brother, just to get power, and got executed for the amount of terror and suffering she caused. Unsurprisingly, I'm not just pulling this example out of thin air. because the series The Tyrant Wants to Be Good is exactly that premise. We follow Dorothy Millionaire, the princess of the Urva Empire, given a second chance at life. You see, we start our series with Dorothy as a child, a little mature and a little too easily aggravated. Same, actually. Not at all behavior for an 8-year-old, but that's because it isn't behavior for an 8-year-old. As we start the series with her second chance, we hear those words directly from her. The present I'm living in now is my second chance in life, and also the last opportunity given to me, a tyrant. And Tyrant is right. Not only is the entire series called The Tyrant Wants to Be Good, but we get to see, albeit briefly, this tyrant's life, and it is bad. Straight up murdering her brother to usurp a throne, apparently following through with some false charges that lead to someone's death, which also causes the love of her life to kill himself because he did not love her. After all of that, and some other things we'll probably get later in the series, it all leads to her death, as the palace was set on fire and she was executed. Yeah, it's a little extreme, but whatever, she probably deserved it. She was a tyrant. However, she's given a second chance at life, being reborn into her current life, getting a new lease on life, actively trying to use her new life to be a good person, no matter how difficult it is. And really, with 3 episodes out, that's basically the general premise. So why did I decide to make a video on this? Most of these series have a lot to them already, so why did I want to talk about the one with the least? Well, because I already like what it's doing. Most of the time, when a main character in one of these regression stories gets thrown back into the past, they typically become a much different person. Maybe not becoming evil, but they're actively manipulative, tricksters, they get revenge and more. Traits that we kind of give to bad people. They're not evil, they're not even villains, but there are certain things that aren't great, and we're not only fine with it, we actively root for it, because they're doing it to people who actively deserve it. Husbands who've cheated on them, sister-in-laws or best friends who backstabbed and betrayed her at the first chance they got, in-laws who manipulated them, leading them to their death. People who are actively plotting their downfall. Sure, it might have been in a previous life, but they're the same people. Meanwhile, with the series of today, we basically follow the opposite of that. We don't follow the person who was manipulated, who was the victim, we follow the person who was doing the manipulating, the person who was plotting people's downfalls, the one who was actively harming others, the one who was a villain. Man, I really love morally great characters, don't I? Anyways, the reason I really like this premise goes back to the idea of a second chance. The female leads that get their second chance usually deserve a second chance. They haven't done a ton wrong, and even if they did do something bad, it's usually outweighed by the tremendous amount of wrongdoings and pains that were done against them. They were victims of truly awful situations, and they deserve to have a second chance to not be that. To not be used or tricked by others, to not be victims, to have a good and a happy life. However, our princess doesn't exactly deserve that second chance, but that's the point. A second chance isn't given because people deserve to have another chance. That's not how that works. You give people another chance because you genuinely believe they can change. Because you forgive them and genuinely believe they're sorry, even if it is a struggle to change. Reading the series, it feels less like one of those regression, romance, revenge stories, and more like a villain redemption arc. Dorothy was a villain, 100%, no doubt about it. A self-proclaimed tyrant, she was a villain. And by seeing her second chance, we got to see her reasons. Her overeager but slightly dim-witted younger brother who basically stole the attention of her father and the world. He's kind, but to her, he's just someone that stole what could have been actual love and attention from her dear old dad. And speaking of her dad, this dude sucks. Man, I've heard of deadbeat dads, but this guy takes the cake. Well, maybe not the cake, but he does a lot bad. Straight up ignores and disrespects his own daughter. It was the desire to achieve his love that turned her into the villain, that made her become a tyrant, was the reason she tormented her brother, was the reason she usurped the throne, was the reason she was a bad person. And that's really cool, because we're basically following a sympathetic villain at the end of their arc. when they learn that what they did was bad. They see the error of their ways. When we learn their reasons, their motivations, and they gain our sympathy and they want to change, but it's too late, since the story has already reached its end. But this time, it's not too late. She's been given a second chance to actually do that. I love morally gray characters, but I think I just like jerks. Not in a weird way, mind you, because I like stories of bad people, but more importantly, I like stories of change or of becoming better. Yeah, redemption arcs are a dime a dozen and honestly a topic for another day, but the reason series like Unordinary or Hardcore Leveling Warrior or even The Boxer stick out as much as they do is because our main character isn't perfect. In a lot of ways, our main character is a bad person, almost a villain, but that's the point. We follow an imperfect person, but more importantly, we follow the main character's change into someone better. Not a side character, not a villain, not some random third party, the main character. Someone who was not a good person changing. Now take that aspect and apply it to the regression, romance, revenge stories that are honestly some of the most fun romance reads on the platform, and that's a pretty solid foundation for what I hope will be a really good series. So make sure to check out The Tyrant Wants to Be Good, updating every week on Webtoon.